Okay, so we're going to go over Chronos 2.0 and the way that it runs its timing for its time frame. The most important number that it goes by is the interval, and the default interval is 5, and we're just going to use that for right now. After that, you have bulb. Now, bulb is actually the actual signal that it sends in order to open the camera shutter and then release the camera shutter. This is set normally for 0.1 seconds. That basically gives a signal long enough for the camera to be able to pick it up and read it. Generally, I can go with shorter than that, but I've found some Canon cameras really need 0.1 seconds in order to trigger. Like the 7D just takes forever before it sees it and will actually take a shot. And then we also have the aftershot buffer. This is just kind of a grace period after it takes the image to where it gives enough time for the image to finish exposing before it moves. Okay? So we're going to look at it like this. Here's the interval. 5 seconds from end to end. Now, you want to take the shot. You don't want to take the shot here at 1. You don't want to take the shot here at 5. You don't want to take the shot at 3 or 2 or 4. You want to take the shot as close to 5 as possible without actually hitting that point. So where we really want to try to aim for is to take a picture here. This is going to be the bulb. Right there between those two lines. And right after that is the aftershot buffer, okay? Which is 0.25 seconds. These are just defaults and they can all be changed. As long as you are shooting with speeds faster than 1/4 of a second, you don't need to worry about any of this stuff. The only time you need to mess with this is if you're shooting at speeds longer than 1/4 of a second. And the reason is the aftershot buffer gives 0.25 seconds for it to finish. So Chronos is not always going to control the camera's speed. Normally, you're probably going to set the camera on manual, tell it what speed you want it to shoot at. And then if it's shorter than 1/4 of a second, you have nothing to do with this. But here's the problem, right? Say the camera's exposure is actually 0.5 seconds. So you're going for a 1/2 second exposure. And it comes out here and it shoots right here. It's going to expose for a full 1/2 second and it's going to run right past this. It's going to go right past, it's going to move right in the middle of where it's exposing. And that's not what you want. So in order to do it, you have to be able to push the exposure back, make it a little bit earlier. So in that case, what you would want to do is the aftershot buffer, you'd want to make that, instead of 0.25, you'd want to make that 0.5. Now, it will trigger and it will take the shot right around here. So that's the bulb exposing. And then here, you have the aftershot buffer of 0.5 seconds. And that way it'll finish shooting, because the bulb exposure is 0.1 seconds. It should finish shooting about 1/10 of a second before it starts moving, and that's fine. So if you want to do 1 full second, you'd want to put the aftershot buffer up to 1. And what that does is that kicks this back even further. So that's where it exposes. This is the aftershot buffer. Now the aftershot buffer only goes from 0.05 seconds to 1 second. So if you want to shoot longer than that, then you have to just start adding in with bulb, okay? So if you want to do a 2.5 second exposure, okay, you're going to want to set the bulb up to 2 seconds. I hate this marker, I'm not even kidding. Set the bulb for 0.5 seconds or 2 seconds. And then the aftershot buffer to maybe like a 0.60 seconds or something, just to give it a little extra time. Then it's going to decide. Then it's going to shoot over here, okay? And the bulb is going to. Let's get this all out of the way. Let's clean this up real quick and redraw this out. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So if you're shooting at 0.25 seconds, the camera is going to open the signal here. And you see it runs for 2 seconds. Then it's going to close the signal right about here. And then you're going to have, so that's 2 seconds for bulb. And then you're going to have the 0.60 seconds for the aftershot buffer. Actually, I'm sorry, that's probably not the best way to here. That's more accurate. So it's going to wait about 1.5 seconds, and it's going to expose for 2 full seconds, and then throw an aftershot buffer of 0.6 seconds. And that 2 seconds plus 0.6 equals 2.6. So you want this number to be bigger than this number, right? Piece of cake. That, in a nutshell, is how this works. So if you're going to be doing a nighttime shot, right? And let's say your goal is 25-second exposures, right? In order to catch those beautiful stars. You're going to want to set your interval probably at 30 seconds. So then you have an interval 1 to 30. You want to set the bulb timer, or bulb, to 25. Okay, and the aftershot buffer, you might want to go ahead and just knock that up. I mean, you want to do the bulb probably 25 or higher, and you can just add a little extra to the aftershot buffer, like 0.5 seconds or something. So that gives an extra half second. So in this case, it's going to wait, and then right about here, shutter open. It's going to go all the way out to about here, shutter close, and then within this little wedge here, aftershot buffer, and then boom, that's where it's going to move. Here, so you can see that a little bit better. This is all designed just to try to make sure that you can squeeze everything in and get everything to work. Now, I did run into a bug. Strangely, when I'm doing a 35-second interval with a 35-second bulb, it shoots while it's moving, and that's something I'm just trying to figure out. So you got to play around with it. Don't just set it up and assume that it's going to work at this point. I'm still figuring out why it's doing that, and once I get that fixed, I'll let everybody know. But in the meantime, if you set it for 33 seconds, it does work. But basically, you have the 3 segments then. The first one, well, you have the interval, which encompasses the entire time period. Within that time period, you have 3 different subsegments. So first, you're going to have adjusted interval, you have bulb, and you have aftershot buffer. Adjusted interval plus bulb plus aftershot buffer is going to equal the interval. So in this case, you have 30 seconds plus, and then you have 30 seconds of interval, 25 seconds of bulb, 0.5 seconds of aftershot buffer. So that's 25.5. Well, let's move that. That's 30 seconds minus 25.5 equals 4.5. So you're going to have 4.5 seconds from here to here, and this is where it knows where to trigger in order to be able to put the aftershot buffer at the end in order to get everything done before it starts to move. I hope that this clears it up. I hope this makes it a little bit more understandable. So just remember, if you're shooting 1/4 second or faster, well, I guess would that be 1/4 second or less? So anywhere from 1/8,000th to 1/4 second, you don't have to do anything. It is just perfectly fine the way it is. If your shutter speed is going to be 1/4 second to 1 second, you can just adjust that within the aftershot buffer. The aftershot buffer itself will go from 0.05 to 0.1 or to 1 second in length. Anything after that, you need to just start beefing up on bulb. So one more time, interval equals 10. Let's just say we want to do let's say our exposure, right? We want to do 3 seconds. Let's say that we're trying to draw it out. We're doing a people time lapse. We got everything we need to draw the shutter out to 3 seconds. We want to do 10-second intervals. So that means we want to set the bulb equals 3. Aftershot buffer, let's just do 0.5. Why not? So that's 3 plus 0.5 equals 3.5 10 minus 3.5 equals 6.5. So this is what's going to happen. It's going to wait 6.5 seconds, and then it's going to shutter open, trigger the camera, go 3 seconds, and then shutter close, and then it's going to fill in the remainder here with the 0.5 second after shot buffer. So all you really have to do is just make sure that if you're shooting over a quarter second, that you tell it, you know, that with the buffer and after shot buffer that's going to go. In fact, you probably, with something like this, you don't even need to worry about the after shot buffer. You can leave that as, and you can simply just set bulb to 4 if you're shooting at 3-second exposures. Or if you're doing 5-second exposures, you can set this to 6 or even 7 or even 8, you know. You just want to make sure that it's higher than your exposure. So anything over 1/4 of a second, then you just need to use the aftershot buffer and the bulb control in order to expand out the amount of time so it understands how long it's shooting. And hopefully that makes sense. Let me know if this is just confusing as hell or if you understand it. But for the most part, I mean, I don't ever even really worry about it. It's just if you're going to be going up with a longer exposure, you just need to tell it that you're going longer exposure, either with bulb control or aftershot buffer. In fact, you can just ignore the aftershot buffer probably forever. And if you're shooting over, 0.25 seconds, just take bulb up to 1. And if you're shooting over 1 second, take bulb up to 2. And that would probably work just as well. So hopefully this helps.